Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? Enjoying it so far? Yeah? My first trip to Canada, I'm enjoying it so far. Thanks. And you're so friendly. It's great. Super. I thought I'd tell you a bit about me, because that'll help you give you a bit of background about what I'm talking about and why I'm talking about it. You can probably see I have a few too many hats. My main hat is I run a consultancy firm in gamification called Gamification Plus. We basically provide advice and strategic help on how companies mainly can use gamification as a strategy in their business, whether it's employee engagement or getting more customers to do more of what they want, like buy things. And I run training courses and speak on the subject as well. For my sins, I've been entrepreneur in residence at the University of Brighton in the UK for 9 years. There I lecture on entrepreneurship and on gamification. So at the moment I've got 39 undergrads taking a gamification course, and in a couple of weeks' time I've got 10 postgrads taking a gamification for business chunked intensive module, which will gamify, of course. Should be good fun. I've ended up chairing the International Gamification Confederation, GAMIFICATION. This is the only international body really come across in gamification, and their mission is to spread best practices, so helping people learn from other case studies and things that have happened. So talking at events like this is really useful for that. If I have any spare time, I do some research on applying gamification for human resource purposes at the university's research school, the Center for Research on Management and Employment. I got into gamification through gamifying CRM systems, customer relationship management databases. I ran an IT company for 13 years before finding the word gamification, and I got fed up of watching people not use all the features they'd bought. So I was looking for a better way to do software. I was looking at different design aspects, and I saw this word gamification, did a MOOC online, and within a couple of weeks, I knew I'd found the subject for me. Sold a part of the business off a few months later, but I still do a bit of gamifying CRM. So I'm practice director of gamification at IntelliStream, which is a CRM company in Chicago, where we've built a gamified plugin for Sugar CRM, which has recently won an award, which is nice. And because I don't have enough to do, I started running my own conference last year with great speakers such as Anne and Marigo and Sylvester, amongst others. And the next one, if you get keen, is in November in Amsterdam. So it'll be good to come along, okay? Right, that's enough about me. These are some of the companies we work with, just to highlight. And the couple that spring out to me today in terms of big data are at the top. I've got a customer called Cambridge Data. That's not Cambridge Analytica. Okay, in fact, my customer's lying low at the moment. Okay, they've got a tool for helping teams of data analysts work better together and come up with better questions on how to analyze big data and then suggest better tests as well. It's quite exciting stuff. And my bit's about actually getting the teams to work better, because data analysts aren't very good at asking questions. They like to give you a report, but not tell you what it's for, really, to a certain extent. And interestingly, Southern Water is my big local water company. I'm about to get our hands on 1 million households' water consumption data, and then we can try and gamify people's consumption of water and reduce it. Because although the UK is known for rain, I live in the one bit that has droughts occasionally. Nobody believes it. Okay, big data. I like this definition. This one, to me, says what big data is all about. It's high volume. There's an awful lot of information, more than the brain can handle. It's coming really fast at a high velocity, faster than we can process. And it's coming from lots of different sources. There's a massive variety. And it makes it very difficult to handle and do anything with. And what we need to do with this big data is turn it into something of value. So I think it's all summed up in this beautiful definition. Let's have an interactive quiz. Why big data? And my apologies, I forgot to translate this into Canadian dollars. This is US dollars. The latest research that I've seen expects the global big data market to be worth a massive amount of money by 2025. And this is interactive, so you get to raise your hands depending on the question, on the answer you think it is. Will it be worth 25 billion, 123 billion, or $232 billion. So let's try. Who thinks it'll be A? Anyone? B? And anyone for C? Okay. I can see how you set quiz questions. It's always the biggest answer, yeah? It's not. Good try. It's still a massive number. The point was they're all big numbers. Now, the interesting bit out of the research for me was actually where is it growing fastest? And these are three of the biggest software segments for big data. Visualization, so displaying the data in such a way that you can analyze it and do it and find something useful out from it. Data integration, pulling the data from lots of different sources. And the databases, where you're going to store it. Which do we think is the fastest growing segment of big data? Do we think it's visualization? Data integration? Most of you, by the looks of it. Anyone for databases? A few. It's visualization, actually. Yeah, it's like this is where, if you think about it, this is about the bottom two are about gathering the data, really, and storing it. Visualization says we're going to do something useful with it. And this, I think, is the first link with games, by the way. Games take lots and lots of data and display it to us in an interesting and easy to understand way where possible. Here's an example of a screenshot from a game. Bonus XP points. We've been doing that a lot in the other sessions. Bonus XP points for anyone who knows what game that is. Civilization. Yeah, loads of you. Excellent. So what I like about Civilization here is it's trying to fit as much key information onto one screen as possible while still making it playable and fun to play. Yeah? So for starters, it displays all the location data as a map, because we understand maps. And everything on the screen tries to look as much like it is in real life as possible. Like a ship is a ship, a building is a building, that sort of thing. I think there's some farm animals. You know what it is. There's more stuff. I've got a list of available units up the side. I've got a health bar for just that one unit. I can see which unit is currently selected that I've got to give orders to, and there's some data about that unit. I'm currently researching, what am I researching? Steam power, okay? And I can see the status of my city, and much, much more, all on one screen that enables us to play and make decisions, yeah? I think that's really interesting. Games don't go and show you reports and graphs, generally speaking. They try and find other ways to display data so that you make and take decisions. And I'll come back to that theme. That's big data. What about gamification? We've probably seen a few definitions this morning. Yeah, I quite like this one, that it's the process of making activities more game-like, a bit more doing. I think of gamification also as a framework for applying other theories such as motivational psychology, behavioral economics, user experience design, and much more, and applying it really quickly and easily. And we should make your experience of being here a bit more game-like, don't you think? So what I'd like you to do is we're going to do a little exercise to trigger some oxytocin, a bit of neurotransmitter to reward you and make you feel more bonded to the other people in the room. What I want you to do is shake hands with at least 2 other people in the room, tell them maybe why you came here today. But the trick is you've got to shake hands for at least 6 seconds, because that's how long it takes the oxytocin to start flowing. Okay? It's probably easier if you stand up. So meet at least 2 people, shake their hands for at least 6 seconds, and tell them something about you. Thank you very much. It's working too well. This happens. Thank you. You can sit. There's lots of neurotransmitters and things we work with in games, but that's my favorite one for this sort of situation. Yeah. I can see that work. Smiles. That's good. Okay. So what about putting big data together with gamification? I'm going to look at least 3 different ways that I think this works really well. The last one I'll go into the most depth because that's the one I think has the most interest for learning. But they're all useful. The first one is games being used to crowdsource analysis of big data. Yeah, so we've got all this complicated, massive volumes of data, a high variety of stuff, and we don't know how to analyze it. Now, there's some good examples out there. Has everyone come across Foldit? Yeah, at some point? Has anyone not come across Foldit? Yeah, this is a really good example of crowdsourcing of big data analysis, I think. And now there's a lot more out there as well. Okay, there's the stats. Eventually, 57,000 players, 12-year-old problem, solved in 10 days. Yeah? 2 years ago, there was a new version of it for Ebola. So they're still doing it. You take a data set, analyze it. They did one for Ebola when there was the latest Ebola outbreak.
I'd like to point out that games such as World of Warcraft and EVE Online have mini games, which basically function like this. So EVE Online had data for cell disease, and while you're traveling through space, you could waste time by solving greater world problems.
That's brilliant, because my next question was, what other examples do you know? You're a mind reader. That's fantastic. So that's a really good example. Any others? Anyone got any other examples they can think of? Because there's quite a few charities that do a lot of this now. In the UK, Cancer Research, I think they've done 4 different games now, including one called Genes in Space, and stuff like that. SETI, yeah, that was a good one. We didn't have to do much in terms of playing, but it was the same principle, I think. Yeah. I was hoping to hear one I hadn't heard of. Okay, just the EVE Online one. That's good. There's another approach to it as well. Have you come across Kaggle? This is a great competitive website. So you upload your big batch of data and then challenge people to solve it and do something useful with it and analyze it. So there's a competition. Basically, people can compete. That's the game element. There are prizes. I had a quick look yesterday. There's quite a few awards that are over $1 million on this website for your data science challenge. You can even test yourself and learn and get better as being a data scientist. So you can make your predictions and then upload it against what actually happened as well and see if you're getting any better. And test out your algorithms. That, I think, is quite an interesting approach as well. So that's our first one. Our second one, well, the opposite, really. I quite like this one. This is kind of where I got into gamification. Using it to generate big data. Sometimes we need more data that we need to analyze and do stuff with. First example, do you remember the LinkedIn progress bar, which is now the profile strength circle? Yeah? But I think it's a good example. It raised 20% more profile completeness across the system. How about this one? Q10, from Malaysia and Singapore. All mine, good. A simple e-commerce example. I quite like this one because it's so simple. They just give points to all their customers for generating data such as, has your product or service been delivered? Yeah? Leaving a review and various other things. And they have millions and millions of customers, so they need all that data to track their suppliers and work out who's best to work with, and so on. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be complicated to get this. Or this one? Oh, yes. Splash. This is actually from the platform we did for Sugar CRM. What I quite like about this is the challenges it sets. Some of them are data quality related as well. That's the other part we want to do with gamification. Improve the quantity, but also the quality of the data. So there's challenges here like data tagging, somewhere in the middle there. And there's a challenge for actually filing your emails so that there's more accurate data against all customer records. Now, those are the two I wanted to cover briefly. The one I'm really more excited about is using big data to come up with more engaging activities for players. And this is what the big video games are doing now. Even when they're in development mode, they're tracking so much information, so many different interactions with each player, that they're able to fine-tune and tweak and deliver a more engaging experience for players. And there's a lot of data. And this figure's only gone up, but there's more than 2 billion gamers producing 50 terabytes of data a day. Not each, together. So what they're doing with this data is using the behavioral data from all the different players to update the game according to what's working well. I.e., they're trying to make games that are more challenging, not too challenging. We don't want people to get frustrated and go away, but keep it just right for each individual. And I think that personalization of the journey is really important. And the game Left 4 Dead by Valve, that uses machine learning and AI to generate encounters for players at a pace and in places that it judges most effective to ratchet up the tension, to make it more exciting. And also some other encounters to improve the multiplayer aspect of it, the team side of it. And before long, we're going to see the same process going with narrative and story within games, because they're starting to track the aspects of the story that are most appealing to different types of player, and then give you more of those. Yeah, maybe you want to dive off into more side stories, more backstories about different characters, or maybe you just want to watch the action film movie version with no plot and just go straight for the explosions and the action. Who knows? But they'll be tracking that. There's a great article on it, actually, that went up a couple of days ago on datasciencegraduateprograms.com called "Big Data is the Biggest Game Changer to Hit the Gaming Industry in Decades," which I highly recommend you read, and I'll share a link on it on Twitter later. But I found it after I handed my slides over. One of the other things games do is they highlight data to you only when you need it, yeah, or rather, only when a decision needs to be taken. So when we've got, well, here's an example. Let's do it that way around. So here we go, civilization again. What I quite like about this is it's telling me I've got a unit that needs orders, I've got a city in peril, and it's giving them up to me in a sort of prioritized order of urgency of which I need to take decisions. It's not making me look at charts and graphs to work out where I need to take a decision, and it's not telling me what decision to take. It's just saying, here's something interesting, you probably need to take a decision. Don't mind what it is, that's up to you. You've got autonomy and choice about that. And this makes games so engaging. This is how we can play them for hours on end. We're just faced with one decision after another decision after another decision. And that's the engaging bit, choosing how we play and what we do. It's fun. Yeah. I think we can do it in the world of work and in the world of learning as well. I think we should highlight tasks and decisions that need to be made and offer them up to our learners or staff in a prioritized order. And what's interesting about that is if you took the framework away from the game afterwards, everyone who played it would still know how to play in the best order. Yeah? You're kind of training them in a process and a procedure at the same time as playing the game. So I think you're doing a little bit of learning about the best way to approach something, as well as the knowledge and the content itself. I'm going to use a CRM example. In fact, I might use a few. One of the things I've got asked for over the years running CRM projects for people is clients quite often ask for a report on their dying leads. So there's a field they often ask for latest activity date. So basically the last time a lead was emailed or met or phoned, and track that date. And then they ask for a report that says, say, give me a list of all those that their activity date is just going over 3 months old. I'm about to lose those. So all that energy, collecting that lead, is about to be wasted. And in my experience, they might run that report once. And they might do something, they might not. I never see it get run again. It's incredibly useful, but they don't use it. What about if you turned it around as a game and displayed the data differently? So here are my leads. These are all reaching the 3 months. They're at the top. And if I don't rescue them, they're going to fall into the lava, okay, at the bottom of the screen. This one's not been active in over 3 months. I'm about to lose this lead. Ah! Into the lava, okay? So I've got a nice visual display. This time I managed to click on time and select the lead. And it's giving me some choices. I'm going to rescue this lead. I can call them, I can email them. It's just telling me there's a decision that needs to be taken. Not what to do. It's giving me some suggestions, maybe. But I get to do what I like with it. Yeah? I think that's a bit more fun. And you're more likely to play that. You're more likely to do something about it through this more engaging technique. I don't think I've got time today to save all of them, though. There's a definition of gamification that I think suits this very well, which is that this basically says it's to enhance web-based systems to enhance engagement, grant choices, reaffirm progression, and provoke social habit. I.e., it's basically saying we can train people using electronic devices and interactions to do what we want and to learn what we want. Yeah? And this is from a nice paper that kind of proved that it worked. Which is nice. There's a little side effect that I want to cover, which is also, as well as training us in the right order to do things, games seem to use this data to facilitate and make us make faster decisions and better decisions, okay? And I'm going to pull from the world of esports. Do we all know what esports is? No, there's a few no. So esports is where we watch other people play video games competitively. Okay? Does that sound like fun? Yes, no, yeah. Yeah, actually, the research shows we get about 50% the level of enjoyment of the player just by watching them. So if you ever stood around an arcade machine watching someone play, that's kind of what you're doing, or watching someone play a game in front of you on the sofa. And funnily enough, 90% of people who watch esports, when asked why they do it, they play that game and they're watching to learn how to do it better. Which is really, so they're naturally wanting to learn. I got distracted. So esports is a massively growing industry where the top players and teams are now earning over $1 million a year. Even the commentators are now earning $500,000 a year. And there's a university in the UK, University of Sheffield, that now has a degree in how to run esports events. Which is kind of cool. That's where it's going. So what they've found, tracking the top game players, is they've been shown to make over 100 decisions a minute. Yeah? And they take even more actions. The metric they use to track it is actions per minute. So you're making 100 decisions a minute, taking 300 or 400 actions based on those decisions. That's an awful lot. How many decisions do you take every minute? Anyone? We have a lot of thoughts, but how many decisions do you take? I'm going to show you a little video, because I think it's really interesting. This guy seems to be about the fastest person I could find. What I want you to try and do is watch his hands as well as the screen, because on the screen you'll see he's exploring, he's taking decisions, doing different stuff. If you couldn't see the screen, you'd think he was just doing something weird with the keyboard.
자, 5조 점수 시작하겠습니다. 5조 점수 시작하겠습니다. 여기 점수대 한 줄로 넣어주세요.
I'm not going to show you the full video because he keeps it up for a good hour. Can you beat that? Anyone? Anyone that good at their gameplay? I think he's going to have arthritis. Don't know about that eventually. Yeah, if you were, you'd be. That was in Korea. He was in a sort of a playoffs or a trial. How are we going to put together big data with gamification and do something and make it more engaging? Now, assuming you've already got your business objective in place and you know what behaviors you want to change, that's core, then I think the process is as follows. You start by analyzing the data. And there, what we want is to analyze the data not just from the player, but from all the players, all the users of the data. So for instance, taking the CRM example again, we'd be wanting to learn which leads need to be followed up next, what additional information needs to be discovered about those leads, and are these high-scoring leads? Are they the ones that need to be followed up? That sort of thing. Then list them out as next actions or decisions. This is what I quite like thinking about, decisions to take. And prioritize them so that people learn at the same time. And tell the player why you've prioritized in that way and why they should do them. Yeah? Knowing why is more motivational. And this is a point where you can make that obvious. One of the things I've noticed sometimes with forms that you have to fill in, they might gamify the overall form completion with a progress bar, but they don't tell you individually about each field. Why is that needed? Yeah. And I think in good gamification design, we would think at that level as well. You need to fill in this field because it will do this. That makes it more motivating. The third step is to take those actions, make them more fun, set them as challenges, rescue these 3 leads before they fall into the lava. Yeah? Or your competitor captures them, more obviously. And also plan at this point for the sort of positive feedback you're going to give the player when they complete the challenge, but also during it if it's a fairly big challenge. And the player takes the actions and completes the quests. Feed the results of that back into the underlying data along with everyone else's results. Run the process again. Send the player around on another similar quest. Keep doing that. If they've been successful a few times, well, it's time to up the challenge level, make it a bit more difficult. And keep the player on their route to mastery. Yes?
Sorry to ask it now, it's just all of them that will fit in now. If I was doing a game and I made a decision, it would help me to say why I made that decision. But sometimes if I look back, I wouldn't remember what I was thinking, how it was going to. And I'm wondering if you have things of that type of thing. Because I know you're looking at me and saying, I'm doing this because of this. But I wouldn't mind knowing what I'm doing so that I can see my own feedback.
Yeah. There is an approach to that games do, which is basically they make you play differently. So they'll make you play with a different character or a different style. And then when you're doing and taking the decisions and you see the results, you're able to compare it to how you played the other day with them. So it's one of the ways to get you to play a game lots and lots of times and to make it more interesting, is to play it differently each time. And for me, that's a really great way to force people to make mistakes and learn better as well.
There's nowhere for you to kind of write a rule to yourself.
So if you ever look online at wikis and so on about people playing video games, you'll find that they do that outside the game, particularly the ones who get really into it. This is the process I went. I watched a little video about someone who did a speed run. Does everyone know what a speed run is? This is where they play a whole video game as fast as possible and get from A to B to finish the game. And this speed run, it took him 3 hours to complete the game. Okay, you think, yeah, that's cool. It took him 3 years of planning and writing down and trying different things and then doing one move and then planning the next one. I'm not sure I would ever want to get into that level of detail, but that's how they got to that level of mastery, was working outside the game as well and making notes about why they did stuff. You're quite right. Good stuff. What comes next? Well, to be honest, there's so much data. What we're really going to need is AI, is machine learning, is stuff like that, to analyze it and help us work with it. You know, if we are trying to personalize the learning journey or the mastery journey of an employee for each individual, well, it would probably take one person, full on planning and doing that the whole time. No one has the resources to do that. So we're going to have to use AI to do that. The good news is, the research shows, this is a quote from Fogg, that actually we really quite like interacting with electronic non-player characters. And we give them, what's it called? Agency, yeah, and consider them persuasive. So we can make masses of versions of ourselves as learning designers and interact. We can create mentors that will take the data and offer up a personalized challenge to someone. Yeah. To be honest, that's kind of why I got into gamification. I wanted my CRM system to help me get better at what I did using the CRM. And so an AI process behind that, analyzing the data and setting me challenges, would really help me along that road. In fact, I guess the question to ask is, would you interact with an AI or robot? So I'm going to ask you to discuss with the person next to you or a couple of people next to you whether you could fall in love with one. Yeah, could you fall in love with a robot or AI? There's a few films out there about this. Yeah. Come on in. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. I'm interested to find out, and then we'll take a poll. Yeah, see who would fall in love with an AI or robot. What do we think? Okay. Would you? All right. Let's find out. What did we come up with? It seemed to be different, by the way, from what I could see. They're more likely to fall in love at the front and less at the back. But let's find out. Who would potentially fall in love with an AI or robot? Who's brave enough to say? Just a few? Yeah? Anyone definitely not? Yeah? The rest of you not sure until you meet the right one? Yeah? I know my answer. My answer is really easy. No, I can't fall in love with a robot because my wife would kill me. But yes, right. Here's a simple, I put together the most simplistic formula I could think of to put all this stuff together so you can remember it. Basically that. Use machine learning and AI to analyze all the big data to come up with more personalized, more gamified, more challenging tasks and quests. And if you put all that together, you've got higher engagement. Pretty simple stuff. And I think our AIs would become quite the trusted companion as well, potentially. Yeah? they can be quite engaging. Here's an example from Portal. Has anyone played Portal? A few.
Probably ought to bring you up to speed on something right now. In order to escape, we're going to have to go through her chamber, and she will probably kill us if she's awake. If you want to just call it quits, and we could just sit here forever, that's an option. Option A, sit here, do nothing. Option B, go through there, and if she's alive, she'll almost certainly kill us. So, if you've got any reservations whatsoever about this plan, now would be a tremendous time to voice them. Right now.
Yeah, I think he's being very helpful as well. He's saying, don't take this challenge on. Or is it a bit of negative psychology? Anyway, good fun. Yeah, that's it. People play the game, enjoy interacting with the AI, and eventually you see people thanking them, and who uses Siri and stuff like that? Yeah, and Alexa. People say thank you and please now. These are all signs that this is going to become more and more possible and likely. In essence, I think all this big data will help us do our work, our learning, much, much better, because we're basically going to be able to personalize every interaction with someone to make it as engaging, as persuasive, and as useful as possible. And I think in the world of work, it will make us more productive and more engaged with our jobs. And in the world of learning, we're going to be masters of whatever we want to learn. Thank you very much. And if I've timed that right, I've got time for a few questions.
That was truly amazing because we have a certificate in big data, and this is a whole new area for us. I read in some literature that 93% of all people in jobs related to big data analytics in the United States are very satisfied or extremely satisfied with your jobs. Could you comment on that in relationship to your presentation?
I'll comment on the satisfied bit, first of all. They're so in demand that it's really easy to get a good job. One of my clients in Malaysia, they got a grant from the government to train 10,000 data scientists by 2020. Yeah, so they are currently poaching data scientists from all over the world to come and teach. So in that respect, yes, it's probably a very important bit. Have you seen the results since Cambridge Analytica? Whether they're quite as happy now? There's an interesting bit. But yes, all of this, we're going to need data scientists, people who understand how to dive into data, people who understand how to translate it as fast as possible into interactions. Because what the video games are doing is doing it basically on the fly. Yeah, there's a lot of processing power going into that. So that right now, right at the exact right moment, I get the exact interaction that's going to most suit me, my current emotional mood based on how I'm playing the game. Yeah, which is going to be different in 10 minutes' time as well. Good question, man.
I love the presentation. I work for the government, which is, the land that fun forgot. And we have huge data sets. And a lot of the programs I run are massive data sets on hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. We would love to do some of this stuff, or even internally, or put it, like the government's committed to open data. So we release huge data sets for people to play around with, or we don't ever ask them to solve a problem. But can you talk about the issue about personalization of data? So the problem with the government is not only that we're, the land that fun forgot, it's really hard to strip out the personalized data, and it's all attached to people.
I think it's a good question. And I think there was a presentation this morning where he talked about psychographics, which is all about understanding why we do stuff and what we do. And to a certain extent, you can assign player types to the different people and their interactions, so that you can actually sort of match people up from a psychometric point of view to the type of data, and then do it that way. Yes, it definitely needs to be anonymous, I think, as much as possible. But I also think there's an awful lot, especially with a massive data set, you don't actually, I think, need all that much individual data. When anyone who's done a PhD probably knows you have to anonymize most of the data and still come up with something useful you can tell people about. Yeah, and quite often that's off like 35 interviews instead of 200,000 bits of data. Yeah. What was the first bit you said? There was something interesting there. Oh, you don't set challenges with your data. Yeah. Whereas I think you should. Yeah. People love rising to a challenge. That's what Kaggle was all about as well. Set a challenge and then get people working on it. Yeah. I think across innovation cultures, which is something we also work on, You need a range of challenges as well. You need some easy ones, some middle-sized ones, and some big ones. And people will volunteer and try and solve stuff. And then if you give them the data to work with, they'll have a go. Yeah, who knows what they'll come up with? They might solve something amazing.
Thank you very much.